Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today we are going to be learning a new track and I'm going to show you guys how to make it super duper easy. All the steps that you have to go through or that you can go through to make it a little easier on yourself to learn the track without getting frustrated. And most importantly, how to go quick on a track that you don't know yet. So let's get right into it into step one. So today we're hopping on iRacing. The 10 hours of Road Atlanta is coming up for the Petite Le Mans series. I'm racing that in like 2 days, and I've never touched this track before, minus like an hour of practice that I did yesterday. So I'm still pretty slow on this track, but I think it's a perfect opportunity to try and teach you guys how to go faster. So step one, and possibly the most important step, is just to drive the track. You don't need a setup, you don't need to watch any track guides yet. Just to, I'd say 10 or 15 laps, figure out what the layout of the track is, try and memorize all the turns, and just get a feel for what areas might be sketchy, what areas might be slow or fast. Just learn the track. So let's go ahead and do that now. Alright, so right there, we just learned something. Now we know that it's a little slippery on pit exit, so either you need to lift or take it in a higher gear so it's more stable. That's something that you want to get out of the way right away, because we're not just learning this track for hot laps, we're learning this track to actually race on it. That means we have to learn the track in different kinds of weather, different kinds of like temperatures, more importantly, what it's like to do a pit stop and all that kind of stuff. So we know the pit exit is a little slippery, so let's try that again. So what I'm going to do this time is short shift up to third right away. That way I don't have to lift, I'm still flat out on the gas, but it's a lot more stable and we're going to get a better exit. I'm sure not everyone is going to do that, especially on this track. For me, that's what works and that's what feels quick and consistent. And in a 10-hour endurance race like what I'm training for, consistency is key. Alright, so here we are at the beginning of the lap. First thing I'm going to do is just go kind of slow. I'm going to take it nice and carefully. I'm probably going to brake wrong. Like now I know I could go a lot faster through that first corner. And a lot of the corners I've noticed on this track, if your FOV is wrong, are blind. So having good FOV settings is also very important. But I know that there's a right-hander for the first corner, and that leads into a left, and that leads into sort of like S's. Maybe like Suzuka or Koda. So I'm just going to take it slow. I'm going to see what's going on with the track, what kind of corners there are, maybe what I should look out for. And then we're going to slowly start going faster and faster each lap and see how it goes from there. Main thing to remember is we're not here to go fast yet. We're just here to learn the layout. Alright, so after a couple laps, I've learned some key features of the track and maybe some things to look out for or some areas that I really need to improve on. So let's go over that real quick. So straight off the bat, I know I can brake a little later into turn one, and keeping the car in fourth seems a lot more stable than maybe shifting down to third. So I know that's something I can improve on. And then coming up the hill, the next corner's braking point is pretty blind. You don't really know when. So it's going to take some practice to just get used to. And finding a brake marker will be really helpful as well. I know I can carry more speed through the third corner. And I know coming down this hill, it can get pretty sketchy. If you don't take it right, your car gets really slippy and it's really easy to send it into a wall. I know through here I can probably cut some more of the curbs and it's probably better to downshift into third through this corner and use more of the track width, as it doesn't seem like that counts as cutting the track. Through here, I know I can brake a lot later and carry a lot more speed through the first part of the corner. I also learned that I should brake a lot earlier for the second part. I also know that the exit can get pretty slippy, so I just have to be careful with that as well. After the long back straight, I know that finding a braking point for the chicane is going to be a little hard because you're carrying so much speed coming down the hill. You don't want to brake too late or too early. Braking too late will send you off the track, as you can see, and braking too early will just make you lose a lot of time. It looks like it's probably best to take it in third gear. That seems like it's the most stable, while still keeping up your speed. I also learned I should maybe turn in a little earlier for the final corner, or second to final corner. Lastly, I learned that the final corner is completely flat out. So after all that, let's take what we learned, try to put it together, and see what kind of lap time we can run. Alright, so after a couple of laps, looks like the best time I could put down was a 1:23.63. That's not bad, but we can definitely go quicker. Preferably we want to get into the 1:19s to be competitive. So let's move on to the next step. Alright, so after a couple of laps, you kind of figure out what your weak points might be, what the weak points of the car might be, and by now you should know the layout of the track. You should be able to visualize the track in your mind and know which corners are coming up. You should have a rough estimate of where your braking points and turn-in point should be by now. Basically, you just have a general idea of the track. You're not exactly fast yet, but you at least know the layout and what to expect. So step 2 for me is always going straight to a track guide right after. Learning from someone who's faster than you is always super helpful. They're super easy to find on YouTube, or if you're in Discord servers, you can usually ask people for help and they'll send you their own track guide, or maybe they'll know a good one on YouTube that helped them. After I learn the basic layout of a track, I always go straight to a track guide to figure out what I might be doing wrong and what I could do differently, and also see what a good lap time to set or work towards would be. Alright, so one track guide later and I have gathered a ton of info. I know I can carry a lot more speed through turn 1. I know that the S's are basically flat out if you do it right. I know that the chicane can be taken with a lot more speed, and I narrowed down my braking and turn-in points. Track guides are super easy to find. You can find them usually on YouTube for free. Some websites also have them, and like I already said, if you're in a Discord server or a league or something, you can always ask someone for help, and usually they can show you their own lap. But yeah, track guides are useful. You're always going to learn something helpful from someone who's faster than you. What I usually do is watch it once to get a general idea, and then I'll watch it back a couple times and really pay attention to exactly where they're braking, exactly how they're turning in. Looking at their braking and throttle inputs is super helpful. And like I said, usually they have a lap time at the end of the video so that you have something to work towards. So step 3 for me that I always do is finding a setup after I've watched a track guide. In my testing, I pinpointed some weaknesses in this car or some things that don't suit my driving style. So now I know what to look for in a setup when I'm choosing one. You can find setups basically anywhere. YouTube has a lot of them. There's a bunch of websites for them. There's a couple places you can actually buy setups. And like I've been saying, Discord servers usually will have them as well. Having friends that you race with is always super helpful. You guys can try out setups together, or if they find one that they like or you find one that you like, you can always share it with each other, and a good setup will make or break your lap times. In the last sprint race season I was in, I was practicing for Coda, the first race of the season, and I was just using some setup I found on YouTube, and I thought I was quick and I thought it was working for me, but a friend of mine was able to hop in a Discord call with me. I sent him over the setup. He adjusted a few things or told me what to adjust, and I ended up running about 6/10 quicker per lap. So finding a setup that suits your driving style and will help you improve is super important. Everyone drives differently, so finding your own setup is vital to running good lap times and being consistent. For the race I'm practicing for, I'm in a team and we're all using the same setup, so they already had one ready for me, and it works well for me. So I'm not going to adjust anything with their setup. I'm just going to use it and get used to it. One thing about me is I play a lot of ACC. I'm not super into iRacing, so switching games is also something to get used to. I've had to change up my driving style a lot just because both games handle so differently. So if you're switching between games, that's also something you got to work on. So far we've learned the layout of the track, we've watched track guides, and we have our own setup that works for us. So step 4 is all about improving your lap time and trying to go quicker and just pushing a little more every lap until you get something that you're happy with. So let's go do a couple more laps and see how much we can improve after the track guides and setup, and then we can compare it to our laps previously. So as you can see, after a lap guide and a good setup that feels stable to me, I ran a 1:21.6, so a 2-second improvement just after a couple of laps with the improved car and improved knowledge of the track. And honestly, that just proves how important it is to learn from other people and build a car that suits your own driving style. The next step is probably one of the most frustrating, and that is the grinding phase. This is where you just keep cranking out lap after lap after lap trying to improve, and at times it might feel like it's impossible to go any faster, but then you'll just get that one solid lap that you put together perfectly, and you end up running a few tenths or maybe even a whole second faster. For me personally, I was stuck in the 22s on this track for a long time, and then one lap out of nowhere after putting on the quali setup, I improved by 8 tenths, and it felt really good. So you just have to keep working at it and getting more time on the track and in the car, and eventually the improvements will come your way. This phase is frustrating because it usually leads to a lot of crashing because you're pushing so hard, or maybe after a ton of laps you just can't find any improvement and you feel like you're hitting your limit. And the main thing I have to say about that is it's okay to take breaks, it's okay to race on other tracks. If you just stay on one single track and you keep trying over and over and getting more frustrated and overdriving the car, you're not going to improve. Taking a break and maybe driving another track, or just relaxing, or just not even thinking about the current track you're trying to learn is super helpful. If you just keep trying to grind on it without taking any breaks, you're just going to get more and more frustrated and it just will not work out for you. So taking breaks is vital. The final step that I have for you is optional, and this is when you feel like you're hitting your limit and you cannot possibly go any faster. And that is to get coaching, or to have a professional or maybe just a friend who's faster than you go around with you, or maybe look at your lap and tell you what you're doing wrong and where you can improve. This doesn't work with every track because some tracks just flow really nicely and you feel like you get the hang of it really quick without needing any help. But other tracks can be a struggle, and there might be some little detail that you're doing wrong that you don't know about until someone points it out to you. For me personally, it was at Coda. I was taking the S's after turn 1 completely wrong, and I got coaching from a friend of mine, and he walked me through the whole process on exactly what to do and how to take each corner, and that helped me more than any track guide, more than any setup, and he was the main reason I was able to run the times that I was able to run. But on the other end, at tracks like the Nürburgring GP circuit, I had already driven that track a ton in my whole sim racing career. That's always been one of my favorites, so personally I didn't feel like I needed any coaching, and I was able to run about a second off the front runners, which for me is good because usually I'm more around the 2-second range. So the final step is optional. If you feel like you need coaching, ask a friend. You can even pay people to come and do a coaching session with you, but a coaching session never made anyone slower, so it's always recommended, not always necessary. Totally up to you to decide if you need it or not. Some tips I have for you guys is to not use the racing line. It's usually not the actual line that you need to take to go fast, and it'll end up forcing you into some bad habits that end up being harder to break when you're learning without the racing line. So in my opinion, I do not think you should use the racing line. That's just me. I'm personally faster without it, and it teaches you bad habits, so I would stay away from it if I were you. If you're feeling discouraged, like I mentioned earlier, racing with friends always helps. It's a good way to get motivation for yourself. Maybe if you're feeling like you're not going to go quicker, so you don't want to drive the track, racing with friends always helps. Having a support system and someone you can relate to and talk about the track with always helps a lot. And for my final tip, remember that it's okay to crash. You're going to learn a lot more about a corner by taking it too fast and veering off track into a wall than you're going to learn by taking it too slow and not finding the limits. Finding the limits of each corner is vital, and sometimes you have to crash to do that, and that's okay. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope I could help some of you guys out with learning your next track, and hopefully you guys will get quicker. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys later.